Cross-sections are free marks in exams. Don't throw them away. And if you have never done cross-sections before, then this is the right place to start. We are going to break it down step by step with a demonstration, and hopefully you don't get lost along the way. I'm Teacher Jess, and welcome to Geo Cafe, and let's check out cross-sections. So I found this textbook over here on the bookshelf just so that you know where this map is coming from. Okay, so this is the map that I found. This is what I'm going to use to draw the cross-section. I'm using a very clear, straightforward image, but your map might not be as clear as this one. We can work with another one in a minute. So you have a map like this where you can see the contour lines nice and clearly. You can see the different heights over there. They're increasing towards the top of the mountain over there. But we want to know, what would this look like from a side view? So a cross-section is a side view of a feature. So we can see that this is some type of a mountain or an elevated area, but we can't really see the specific landscape. We can also see over here, these are supposed to be rivers, and I'm assuming, well, I think it's safe to assume that this is running down a valley of some type, and this would probably be a spur in between them. But what would this actually look like? So our first step of our cross-section would be to identify our start and end points. Okay, can you guys see the point over there? There's my X, so there's my starting point. And then I'm going to make the end point here. Of course, they will give you these points. So you're not going to be picking your own. They will tell you cross-section from X to Y. So there is my end. There is my start. Okay, so I'm doing a cross-section from X to Y. So we've done point number one, identify your start and end points. There's start, there's end. Then, number two, get a strip of paper. So here's my little piece of paper, any type of strip of paper that I can clearly draw on the edges or I can see the edge. You will probably be given a piece of paper in the exam. I know if you're an IEB student, you'll be given a sheet of paper called an equipment sheet. It will have a printed ruler and stuff on it. You just turn it around, or you just use the edge of that for your cross sections. A useful little tip is to actually use press stick to hold the piece of paper down. So we can do that. Of course, if you don't have, that's completely understandable, especially if it's in the exams, you might not have press stick with you. So we put the piece of paper, got the piece of paper, and we place the paper on the map so that it connects X and Y. There we go. Press that down nicely. I know that I have covered all the numbers. I can just lift this corner over here, see what the values are, and then we can continue marking it. That's why I like to use the press stick, because then I can see exactly where my points are supposed to be. Next step, label points X and Y on the paper and their height. This is a really important starting point just in case the piece of paper moves. So here is X and here is Y. Now, if for whatever reason the paper shifts, I'm going to drag it down like that, I can just put it back on these 2 points again. Note the contour intervals of the map. So typically your contour intervals are 20 meters, but let's just double check and make sure that is the case. We can see over here, there's 1040, here's 1060, 1080. Okay. Fantastic. Then, this is probably the biggest of the steps. Label each contour line that crosses with the paper and their heights. So I'm going to make sure that these are aligned to those points. And I'm going to start with X and Y. So X is 1080 and y is 1060. I can make my life a little bit easier and just write the 80s and 60s instead of the 1000 the whole time, but if you feel like you would get that confused, then rather don't. Now, I can see that these numbers are moving downwards. So my slope is moving downhill as I go through the cross-section. This is a river. Just in case it wasn't clear, this is supposed to be a river. You can actually see which way it's flowing with the little arrows over here and the tributaries joining over there. So we can see it's moving that way. Obviously, the river would be at the bottom of a valley of some type. So this is the bottommost point, which means that when it reaches the valley, the river at the bottom, at the other end, it will start to move upwards again. If you're not sure if the slope is moving upwards or downwards, look at which way the text is printed. So if you're reading it this way up and you're reading like that, so if this is the bottom of the text, reading it like that, that way is up. Just align my points again. So now I know it's going down in 20s until I reach the river, and I don't really have enough space to write all of those numbers in, so I'm just going to shorten them to 60 and 40. And here I've got an interesting little cross with the river. You see? Here's the river. I'm going to say R over there. Okay, so this is going to be the bottommost part of my plot. Then on this side, so if this is the very bottom, here it will start to come up again, and this will be the same height as that one. So that would be 1040. You can always double check. Oh, they don't actually mark it anyway. Okay, yes. But that is the lowest on this side, 1040, so it will be the same on the other side of the river. Okay, then we continue to count up in 20s, 1060, 80, 100. Oh dear, I'm going to run out of space. So I'm just going to drag this one down like that. 120. I'm really running out of space. Yeah, that's a little trick. Just make it a very long line so you can still see the value. Here we go, 180. And then this looks like it's 200. Okay, I'm going to double check. Is that a typo? Guys, I think there's a mistake in this book. Yeah, there's a mistake in this book. There's no way that this is 2,000 meters. Am I reading that right? That says 2,000. That's supposed to be 200. Okay, sometimes this happens in textbooks. This won't happen on a map. On a map, you won't find a mistake like that. But that is definitely not 2,000. No. No, it can't be. Okay, let's ignore that one. Just sorry about that. That's supposed to be 1,200, because if we stick with our intervals down, there's then the 1,180, 1,160, and there's 1,140. So that's definitely a mistake over there. Okay, we'll just excuse that one. So we know this is supposed to be 200. I'm gonna drag that down. 180, 160, 140. And we just double check that the rest are correct, excusing the 200 though. So that one we said is 140. Yes, perfect. 120, 100, and then 80, and 160. Okay, that was probably the most challenging part of the cross-section, but we have done it. Yay, we are champions. Note any important features. So any important features would be things like rivers or peaks, or maybe they will ask you to highlight a buffer zone or an agricultural area or something like that. So just make note if there's anything that's kind of jumping out that you're going to want to make note of when you actually plot it. So I did that over here with the river. I'm actually going to do like a little, you can either maybe do it a little downwards like that, or a minus like that, just so that you know that this is the bottom of the valley. Here it keeps going up. So I know that this is the top of the mountain over here. So this peaks over there before it comes down again. Sometimes it happens that it wibble wobbles like that. So you need to just remember which parts are the ups and which ones are the downs. And then finally, we pick up the piece of paper. Yes, we shall miss no steps with the press stick. There we go. Now we get to the part where we're going to draw it onto a graph. Okay, so most likely you'll be given a graph to draw on, but if you don't, we're going to do it from scratch, but hopefully you'll already have this basic setup. I'm just going to draw a simple set of axes over here. Now, each of these lines that you're seeing over here should be 1 centimeter apart. If this is already given to you, then this will already be measured, or they'll tell you to assume that it's 1 centimeter apart. Just work on that assumption or work on that measurement. Now, I didn't measure these, I will admit it, but we're just going to say that it's 1 centimeter. The reason why this is important is because later on in the exam, they might ask you to calculate vertical exaggeration. We can get to that another time. For now, just make sure that this is 1 centimeter. We are going to label these horizontal lines with the same with the same intervals that was our contour intervals. If you guys remember, our contour intervals was 20 meters. So we are going to count these up in 20s. Your lowest or your first value down here should be 1 lower than your lowest value. So if we look at our readings, our lowest was 1040. You guys remember that? There. That was the river, the valley with the river in it. It was 1040. We are going to count 1 interval below that, so that will be 1020. So right here, 1020 meters. Okay. Then we count up in those intervals. Okay, your highest line should be 1 more than your maximum value. So if you guys remember, our maximum value was 1,200, not 2,000, 1,200. So our highest line should be 1 interval above that, so that's 1,220. Okay, place the paper at the bottom of your graph. We are going to align our starting value over here, x, with that y axis. Sorry about the mismatch of letters. Then we are marking the points on our graph. So this is x over here, and this is where y is. It might even help to draw a line to show you where y ends. The reason for this is because we don't want to move past that line. We have only done a cross section up to there. We haven't gone past that. So even if there is more space on the graph that they've given you, you are only plotting up to the end point, no further. Okay, I want to note the heights of x and y. So I'm going to start with x, our starting point. That was 1,080. So I'm going to move to 1080 over there. And this is my start right here. That's where X was. And then Y was 1060. So I'm going to move that to 1060. And this is point Y. Okay. Now if we move our paper to the bottom, the very first horizontal line, and we are going to check to see if there are any points that match with that height. As we look across, we can see our bottom line is 1020, and no, there are no values over here that are 1020, because remember our lowest value was 1040. So we are going to move up to the next line. Make sure your X and Y are still aligned with those axes. Okay, here's our first one. There, 1040, 1040. Fantastic. Okay, we move it up to the next one. $1,060. That's there and there. That one. That one. These are really close together. And then, of course, the end. And then 80, 1080, that's there. So it's obviously X, our starting point. There. There. Okay. 1100. Here's our first one. And there. 1120. 40. There. And there. 1160. Oh, this is getting really, really close. Oh dear, I hope I haven't mismeasured any. Did I? I did. Oh my word. Look at the mess I made. You guys see over there? I recorded these as 40 and 60 when they were actually 140 and 160. Okay, it's okay. Those mistakes happen. Let's just erase that. My mistake. It happens. It's okay. And then finally 200. There. Okay, can we see the vision? We pick up the paper. Can you see it? Can you see how it's all coming together? And finally, we connect the dots. So if you guys remember, this is where the river was. So I know that this will be the bottom of a valley. And it won't be flat on that line. It will dip down a bit. Not all the way down that it's reached a new contour line, because there wasn't another one. But we'll know that it will probably have dipped below that point. So I connect my dots. It's quite a gentle slope over here. If you guys remember, there was a river down there. There we go. That looks about right. And then this is the top of our mountain. In this particular one, again, it was quite a flat top because of the feature that it is. So we'll just have a little peak over there like that. Okay. And then that's it. That's our first cross section. Can you guys kind of see it? So if you want to, we can label over here. This is where the river is. There's the river. So there and there. There we go. And that is our first cross section. Well done. You've done it. Okay. Do we feel up to trying another one? So you guys might not be given something as nice and pleasant as that other map. It might be something as detailed as this one, but we can still do that. Okay, so we're going to say we are drawing the cross section maybe from that spot height 1715 to this trig beacon 594.5. You are allowed to bring a magnifying glass into the exams, or at least in the IB exams, I know that you are allowed to. Maybe just double check with your teacher, but you can use a magnifying glass if you can't see these values very clearly. So in this case, I can see that the exact height over there of that spot height is 715 meters. And then over here by this trig beacon, the exact height, let me read it, 594.5. 594.5. Okay. I have my starting point and my end point and my values. Now I check what are my contour intervals. A topographical map like this one with the scale of 1 to 50,000, it will be contour intervals of 20 meters. You can actually see that there's these darker lines over here, these thicker or bold lines. They show you every 5th contour line. That will be 100-meter intervals between these thicker lines, and then the thinner ones will be 20 meters each. So you can count in the hundreds, that's the bold lines, and then you can count in the 20s, that's the individual lines. It's a nice way to make sure that you have the right value, because if you have a bold line like what we see right over here next to our spot height, there is a bold line. Is that right? No. Yes. It means that that will have to be a value of 100, and that makes sense. That would be 700. There we go. If you're not sure how I know that this is going downwards, you look very carefully over there. You can see there's an enclosed circle all the way around that spot height. So that tells me that this is the top of a mountain and it's moving downwards. Where's my next line? Right here. Unfortunately, the number is clipping through it. There we go. So that's 680. There's the next one. Oh, this is going to be tricky. 660. There's a road. I don't know if that's important. I'm going to leave that for now. Okay, now is this going up or down? It's going down. We see it's still going down. It's going towards a river over there. There's a bold line, so that must be the 600. Okay, so that's 640, 620, and there 600. Great. Here is my next line. So it's still going down. 580, 560, 540, do I have enough space? 520. There's a river over there. I'm just going to make note, a little R for the river. Don't know if you guys can see that. So if you guys remember from the previous cross section where we have that little river over there, it means it's the bottom of the valley, so it's going to be coming up again on the other side. So this 520, you can actually see the lines connect if you follow that line there. Okay, this one 540, 560, 580, and 600. You see it's a bold line again? That tells us that that's 600, or at least a round 100 number. Okay, and then this is flat. Here we have a road. I'm just making another dot over there like we had with that one. So this is a road. And here we have another 600. I can tell because the line is connected all the way around here. So it's the same. And then we get our check beacon. That was definitely a difficult one to draw, but we got it. And pick up the plastic. Yuck. Be careful when working with textbooks or maps. Please treat them carefully. There we go. Like I said, hopefully this will already be given to you. Will already be measured out, and they'll tell you that it's 1 centimeter intervals. And here's my piece of paper, don't lose it. Now I want to label these horizontal lines first. So I need to check what is the lowest value and what is the highest value. My lowest value, looks like it was 500 something, 520. Yeah, okay, so we make our first line 500. So that's one interval below. And then we go up in 20s and I check what is my highest value. That's 715. So one interval above that would be 720. Yeah, that's good enough for me. Okay, 720. So that's our highest point. Then I mark my start and my end point. So my start point is obviously that line. My end point is right there. Remember, we don't go past that point because we haven't plotted past that point. So I'm just going to rule a line up here just to guide me. So as I move the piece of paper up, I can just make sure it's between those lines. Okay, my first value, my starting point was 715 meters. So that would be about here. Half of that would be 710. So I halve that again, and that is my start. That is my 715 meter start. Great. Then my end point, 594.5. And I think we can say that that's about there. Half of that again. Now we go line by line, and hopefully I don't make a mistake again. Let's see if my head is screwed on right this time. Okay, 500 meters. Obviously, there won't be anything that's 500 meters because that is our bottommost interval. But there should be something at 520. Yes, right here. There, 520. Remember, that's where the river was as well. And then 540. No others? No. 560. 580, there, and there. And then we have 600, it's there, and there. And if you remember, there was a road over here. 620, wait, did I get that one? Yes, I did. Okay, 620, 660, it's there. And then the last one is obviously our starting point. So we've already plotted that. Okay, we can see the vision. Now we just connect the dots. So we started there. Okay, sorry about the little wobbles. And remember, the river would probably be at the bottom of the valley, so it won't stop exactly on that contour line. We'll probably have a little dip like that. There we go. And we just continue up. There we go. And then here we have the top of that hill. So remember, it was fairly flat. We even had a road up there and everything. So we just have a little mound. And then down to our end point there. Okay, we have the vision. And if we want to add in our important details, so if you guys remember, I was noting where the road was and where the river was. So let's double check. The river is over here, and the two roads, there was one here, there, and there was another one there. You can see I marked it. Okay, we have that. Hopefully cross sections don't feel overwhelming and too frightening anymore. You can do them. You just follow the steps. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this. I hope that cross-sections makes a little bit more sense and that you can see that they are very manageable as long as you can actually read the little numbers in between. Double check. You should be able to bring a magnifying glass to your tests or your exams. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a lovely day further. Hopefully you learned something interesting or had a few questions answered. And if there's anything in particular that you want me to go over, maybe demonstrate like this, please let me know and I'll happily do a video on that. Okay, cheers, bye.